Hey, it's Donna talking about Hearthstone. We're talking about Naxxramas, an expansion that you may have heard of. There are a lot of cards that are being released in the game. It's a very exciting time for Hearthstone people. Uh, so we're going to be talking about the cards. The class cards have already fairly been covered on the internet, I think. Noxious has a great couple videos about how each of the class cards plays into the different types of decks for the classes, things like that. And since those were released earlier, there's been a lot more time for the analysis to go through on those things. What I haven't really seen, what I'm going to talk about in these videos, is the neutral cards, specifically how the neutral cards synergize or how they work or don't work with the individual classes in the class cards. You know, how a neutral card works with other neutral cards, that can happen in any deck, but when you're choosing a class to build a deck around and construct it, or you're choosing a class to draft for an arena, then you're going to be locked with a certain amount of class cards. I think it's real important to analyze the new Naxxramas cards in the context of, okay, well, how does this card work with this class's set of things? And nobody seems to be talking about that, so I'm going to talk about it. We'll do like one card every day and go through how it, my thoughts on what each of the classes are, and we'll go from there. So let's take first card we're going to talk about, the Haunted Creeper. Let's talk about this guy first. It's 2-drop, it's a beast, 1/2. It's got the death rattle to summon 2 of the little spider dudes. Pretty popular card, I would say, so far. Maybe because there's only a couple cards in Nax that have been released, but it seems to be pretty popular in aggro. You know, zoo, it's pretty huge in. And I think the card is pretty decent just in general. You know, you like Harvest Golem because of the death rattle, because it sticks around, right? It, you know, survives board sweeps. It takes an attack, maybe it can, or 2 attacks, so it can go 2 for 1 on minions. It's pretty good. It's a silenced target in the fact that any card with death rattle is a silenced target, but you're only silencing off another 2/1 minion. It's not super duper insane what it does. The Haunted Creeper is kind of a Harvest Golem Junior. To me, it gives you 2 minions, which can be better or worse. They're weaker. The stats on the original card are weaker than Harvest Golem. But I think it has a leg up on the silence mechanic, because what are you going to do? You're going to silence it with an Iron Beak Owl? I mean, it's a 2-drop, right? You're not going to be seeing a Keeper of the Grove. You're not going to be seeing a Spellbreaker. Is the Priest really going to blow one of his 0-mana silences on this? Maybe, but likely it's going to be the Owl, and this can trade with the Owl straight up. So, you know, it's like a lot of cards in Naxxramas. Everybody's talking about it's all death rattle. It's going to be all silences and that kind of stuff. You only have so many silences, right? I mean, no class has a silence card except Priest and Druid, and you have 2 like not that great minions in constructed otherwise. So, yeah, I think it's pretty decent. I think it's pretty decent early game kind of card. Police seem to like it a lot too, so they must be, I don't know, really frightened of a Haunted Creeper or something. Okay, let's go through the classes, all right? Okay, Druid. One of the most popular types of Druid decks is the Token Druid, with your Violet Teachers and just a lot of little cards, and it's all based around, in many ways, all Druid decks are based around this stupid friggin' Savage Roar Force Nature combo. Savage Roar especially. Anybody that's ever played Druid has gotten wrecked by this combo, I don't know, like 1,000,000 times, because I do every day, right? If you get to turn 9, you die. So the strength of this combo is not necessarily Force of Nature, but it's really Savage Roar, because Savage Roar is a card that just, it increases exponentially by the amount of minions that you have on the board. And already you can see that the Haunted Creeper goes pretty well with this, because it's going to be another minion. It's another low drop minion, and your opponent may not want to, they may not want to kill it. If they do, then they have 2 minions. That's double the roar power, right? The strength of this card in Druid is that, like a lot of Druid minions, it's probably gonna stick around. Your opponent's either gonna ignore it because they don't want to kill because they don't want to deal with the death rattle, or if they, you know, cast a board sweep or something like that that's gonna kill it anyway, it has a legacy. It's still around, and usually that's going to happen on their turn. So then on your turn, you have 2/1/1 creatures, essentially with charge. So for Druid, that's pretty good. A lot of the strategy of Token Druid revolves around Mark of the Wild. You know, and now you have 2 creatures that you can do this off of. Savage Roar is 2 more creatures. You know, it's scenarios, the lesser used scenarios, the +2/+2, that's 2 more creatures that you're going to have. A lot of the ways that Token Druid plays in the early game and the threats that it have, I think really line up with what this card does, because it's another death rattle card that won't die. It synergizes also with these I've seen some like Poison Seed, Soul of the Forest combo druids that are out there, I think, because people really want to try this new Poison Seed cards out. Works well there too. Death Rattles work great with Poison Seeds because it doesn't polymorph, right? It kills everything, and then they come back as trees, or either the seeds, or Soul of the Forest, or whatever. So, you know, you would get your trees, and then you'd also have your little 1/1 dudes. So I think that there's a lot of synergy in Druid. You know, Mark of the Wild is a card that you see a fair amount of. Some people say that buff cards just in general suck because they're vulnerable to silence and they're vulnerable to the minion getting killed. And that's true, but you have to think how likely is it somebody's going to silence a 2-drop versus kill it. I don't know. I think that the style of Token Druid in play just gained a card that has very valuable token benefits to it, and all the class cards that Druid uses to fuel Token Druid, like Mark the Wild, Savage Roar, maybe these cards, maybe Mark of Nature, all those things work on this just as well. I think the synergy with Druid is pretty solid. With Hunter, it's a beast, right? I mean, that's what all your Hunter decks, certainly your aggro Hunter decks, they deal with, because they have so many beast combos. Timberwolf is beasts. Scavenging Hyena, you know, you sacrifice creatures a lot, like Hounds, to pump the Hyena up. Now you do it, you get 2/1/1 little guys bonus. It's another low drop combo card for the Buzzard. You know, it gives you 2 minions on the back end that maybe you could, you know, flip an Animal Companion out the next turn, and now you have 2/2/1s. You know, if you get Leok, right? Triggers Kill Command. Houndmaster can taunt it up. It's kind of limited, I think, by the time in the game a Tundra Rhino is going to drop. But, you know, you think about Stone Tusk Boar, which is the 1-drop for the 1/1 charge beast, and that's real popular in Hunter because of how well and how versatile it combos with Hyena, Buzzard, Kill Command. I mean, it's only 1 mana, right? Houndmaster, you have a 3/3 charge for 1 mana if you combo with this. This card, I think, is kind of the same, fills the same function as Stone Tusk Boar. It just doesn't have charge. It has this death rattle that makes it more defensive. I think in a mid-range Hunter game, that is going to be more valuable. In aggro Hunter, I don't know if they're going to dump the board for it, but it's another beast that's good, that's early, and if it dies, it's not a big deal because you get 2 little tokens afterwards. It would be like crazy if the spiderlings that spawn after the Haunted Creeper's dead were beasts, but they're not. They're like some kind of like spooky spider or something, so they're not a beast. So pretty solid with Hunter, kind of just because it's a beast, which is, I don't get real excited for about it because that's not really creative synergies, but it is what it is. Alright, Mage. Not really a lot for Mage. You know, Mage is a class that doesn't have any, like, buffs. I mean, there's no plus attack damage on any other cards, right? They are a class that their minions combo with the spells that they have in their deck. Mana Worm, you know, arguably the best 1-drop in the game, combos with all these spells that usually come early in the game. Early removal with missiles, early taunts with Mirror Image, all that stuff fuels your Mana Worm. That's why it's such a strong card. Sorcerer's Apprentice can change your tempo on your spell stuff, can enable win conditions and Freeze Mage. You know, it combos and synergizes with the other spells that are in here. Kieran Tor with the secrets, Arcanist with the secrets, Water Elementals, just pain in balls. You know, that there's not really anything in here that specifically hooks up with the Creeper. So that leaves it sort of in just, okay, well, what does it do just as a neutral card in general? Is that type of card good in Mage style of decks? Maybe. I mean, in Freeze Mage, no, because you usually are playing pretty few minions and you just bomb the crap out of them at the end. In Aggro Mage, that runs around the Mana Worms and the Knife Jugglers with mirror image combos, yeah, maybe. Maybe. I mean, you typically see Harvest Golems, maybe Crusaders in that, and it could be in there, but it's not anything super special. Maybe there's a combo with the hero power, and I should have said this for Druid too. Then all the ping classes that have the 1 damage, you can use this card on a turn where you really need 1 extra damage on something else, so now you're doing 2 damage to it instead, and it gives you 2 little tokens that you can use to buff your hero power later. It may not seem like a lot, but when you're playing those tight aggro matchups against Shaman or Zoo or Shakadin, sometimes that can be the difference between winning and losing. That can be a big, maybe you need that 1 extra damage on that 1 turn to swing the game. So it's there. Pretty low synergy though, I think. Okay, Paladin, pretty good with Paladin, I think. Well, Paladin is a class that, at least the Shakadin spec, kind of revolves around. You get a bunch of minions out. You throw as much crap on the board as you can, and yeah, your opponent's going to kill some of it, but they're not going to be able to kill all of it. And then whatever survives, you just beat the crap out of them with it, because you throw like Blessing of Might on it, or you do like Argent Protector, like Divine Shield play, or Blessing of Kings, more so in Arena than Construct. You don't see that as much. A lot of the way that Paladin gets board control is through just putting a lot of stuff out there, and this card is, I think, great for that because of the Death Rattle, because it gives you 2 more things to put out there. The starting stats, not as important as that something is on the board that you can put some kind of buff onto, right? That's why when you play against Paladin, you're usually just killing everything that you see, because you don't want to get Blessing of Might. You don't want to get a stupid friggin' Divine Shield play and have your thing traded off. That's like the worst, right? So this card here, I think it fits right in with how Paladin approaches a lot of things. Might combos, Divine Shield combos. Sword of Justice with this card's pretty big. If this came down later, it's 2-3. If you coin a Sword of Justice and drop this the next turn maybe, but what's more likely is that you're going to drop it on a 2-drop, put Sword of Justice out on 3, and then your next turn you kill like a 1-2 or something like that, and or there's like a 3-2 on the board, right? You send your 1-2 into it, dies. Sword of Justice gives you 2 2-2s, and you hit it with the other tick of the sword. Now you got 2 2-2s in a clear board, probably against an aggro deck. Pretty good. The fact that it sticks around is a big deal, and it creates more problems than not. That's how Paladin gets board control. It's how they keep board control. It's how they win games. So I think it syncs up really well with Paladin, because it fits right into how they're approaching things already. Priest is, I don't know, kind of weak. I mean, the cards that work with it, that actually do something, Inner Fire buffs it, Inner Fire Divine Spirit combos. You see priests that do that, whether or not you think that combo's good or not, but you're going to see it. I don't think you're really going to waste those on a 1-2, because what's best case scenario? 4-4? No, you use that stuff on like Stranglethorn Tigers, or, stuff that is going to be big. Those kind of 1-turn kill things come from minions that stick around, or even if you're not 1-turn, obviously you're not going to be doing it off this minion, but you do it off Tigers. But in general, your Divine Spirit Inner Fire combos, those have value in minions that are going to stick around. This one, because of the Death Rattle, that it's going to be there, right? It's going to survive the turn. But, I mean, you're talking about 2/1/1s. You're not really a whole lot to do there. Power Word Shield. There's some synergy there. in a vacuum, but I don't think really realistically how people play with this card. Yeah, putting that on a 1/2, turn it into 1/4. It's like okay, it'd be good against Paladin, right? But that's not super exciting. And this card, ain't no priest gonna waste this on a 1/2 drop. This card is a monster on Northshire Clerics, and it's a monster on Wild Pyromancers, right? You know, those are the cards that priest is gonna use Power Word Shield for. While you know, theoretically it might do something with the creeper, I can't think of any priest player that would ever do that. I mean, Power Word Shield Pyromancer, that's like one of the best early board controls in the entire game. So that's kind of it as far as what priest has. You know, it has a death rattle, so it survives the Auchenai Circle Healing clear, but you know, because you don't have any real buffs to back that stuff up with, it just gives you the 2/1/1s. The value's not nearly as big. It's just kind of a nice little afterthought, but by the time you get to turn 4, what are 1/1s that you can't really do anything with really going to do? I don't know. I mean, same thing with Temple Enforcer, right? It's you're giving it 3 health, now it's a 1. It's cheap mana, right? So maybe you could do it later. It's like a 1/3 if it's one of the tokens left over, or 1/5 off the original. 1/4 if I need to do my math on the tokens. I don't know. I mean, you'd have to invest so much to make it good. I just don't think it would be worth it. You know, it's not a card you want to be drawing in the late game because the power's so weak, and by the time Priest gets around to Enforcer range, you know, they're looking at bringing out Valen or, you know, killing you with Holy Fire or something big, right? So pretty limited in Priest. I mean, even the maybe synergies are pretty... Those are reaching. Don't really think much is going on there. Okay, Rogue. Rogue is a class that functions similar to like a Paladin or a Shaman in that you got to kill everything that they put out every turn, both in Miracle and in your aggro or your tempo rogues, because I mean, it's really because of Cold Blood, right? Because that's their big buff card. It's talking 4 damage, man. That's a lot, especially in Rogue where they're always going to pull some combo out of their butt and murder you. That's the only card that really buffs it at all. It's the only card that it really does anything with in the Rogue set. I mean, all these other cards don't really interfere with it. There's no reason to give it stealth because it doesn't, like, get buff. Vanish, no. Put it back out after Vanish, I guess. You know, it's an okay card to combo with Van Cleef, but really you're looking at Cold Blood. And you might think, well, you know, hey, Donna, like, you talked about how awesome it was with Paladin because of Blessing of Might. Yeah, and Cold Blood doesn't really play out like that realistically. Think all the rogues that you play, Cold Blood usually goes on charge stuff, right? Because they want to put it into your face no matter what. You know, Leroy, Southsea Deckhands, Arcane Golems, and Argent Squire, I guess, is the only card that Cold Blood usually doesn't have an immediate effect on, but they usually will save it till the next turn when they're attacking. So they have a 5/1 that hits something and kills something, and it doesn't die because of the shield. You know, you put a Cold Blood on the Creeper or one of the Spiderlings, then it's dead after you trade for it. You know, Rogue's pretty one-sided. They just move forward and they kill you. And then they don't care what happens to their minions afterwards. Versus Paladins, you're kind of starting on your back foot a little more, where you want something to stick around. You want to invest a lot of resources in clearing, and you say, okay, well, I got 2 things left alive, and so, boom, I'm going to bless and do this and maximize the efficiency there. So I think that it doesn't really play into how rogues work, despite Cold Blood being a card that actually, you know, can do something to it, because rogues don't really care that much about minions sticking. They care about minions dropping, doing their damage, and then anything on top of that is gravy, you know? Paladin's opposite. So I think that the value of the card for how it syncs up with Rogue, I think that's diminished in the Rogue matchup because it doesn't play out the same way. Versus Shaman, right? Shaman has a very similar style to Paladin. They put a bunch of crap out there, and you kill some of it, and you hope that they don't have the right buff cards for the things that you ignore, and then they you know, drop a bunch of stuff on you. Like all of a sudden, boom! Now it's got Rock Biter and Wind Fury, and I put Flame Tongue Tome next to it, and you lose the game. So the card's pretty good for that. It's similar to Paladin, that the value of it is that it sticks around, right? The approach when you play Shaman is pretty much the approach when you play Paladin. You got to kill everything because you never know when the buffs are going to come out of who the heck knows where. So this card, you know, fits right in. You got 2 targets to Rockbiter now if they killed it. Wind Fury is not going to do much, but Ancestral Spirit, Death Rattle to resummon. You know, I think that synergizes. I don't know. I could see it. I don't think that anybody would say that would be a good combo, but you know, the Shaman deck is alive and well. That's got like to make a million Karns or Earth Elementals with this Ancestral Spirit. I could see a situation where you're playing against Zoo and you got this card out there and it's like, oh man, you know, the Zoo's running me over, drop an Ancestral Spirit on it, and all of a sudden you got 4 little spider guys. Not bad. You know, that I could see a situation where that would be decent. Big synergy with Flame Tongue because it creates 2 bodies, right? No, it's 2 things to Flame Tongue off of, and you put the flame. If they both survive, put the Flame Tongue between them, and that's 4 damage that you got out of it, in addition to what I had before. So pretty strong with Flame Tongue. Flame Tongue is similar to Bloodlust in the way that it doesn't really matter what the minions next to it are. It's that there are bodies on the board. That's the threat. That's the threat where it comes from. Granted, Bloodlust doesn't really use that much in Constructed. It's much more common in Arena, but I don't know, when you're playing a Shaman, kind of the elephant in the room is always Bloodlust, because you might be playing that one Shaman that has Bloodlust, and man, he can just murder you if if you give him too much board control. So this card, because it creates 2 cards when it dies, I think that hooks up really well with a lot of the Shaman buffs that they have. So I think it's a pretty good card for Shaman too. Alright, Warlock, I mean, is the obvious winner, right? I mean, if you've been playing at all, you've been beat a bunch of times by Zoo, because people just, I mean, it was like an immediate add to Zoo, right? It's perfectly just like the creatures in Zoo. Zoo's strength comes from, they put something out there and it's something that's hard to remove, you know? Your Divine Shield minions, your Harvest Golem, even Voidwalker is... The strength of the deck comes from, well, you're going to have to do like 1 or 2 things to get rid of this. You got to invest 2 cards, or like twice as much mana as I did, or you silence it, but I have a million things, so you're going to run out of silences, or I have a way to survive a board sweep, or things like that. Zoo is an easy deck to beat. In theory, you just kill all the minions every single turn, and you'll probably win, because other than, you know, Doom Guards and Soulfires, they don't really have a way to get back in the game. But this card is super annoying in that it sticks around. And while it's only 1 damage, when you have a deck like Zoo and it's going to your face pretty much every turn, yeah, I mean, that's out there. It's another target for Power Overwhelming. It's... Well, that's about it. For how it... Well, you know, it survives Hellfire. And it survives Twisting Neither. I mean, anything with a Death Rattle is good for these because they'll live. And typically these, you're going to use these in situations where you clear the entire board. So you kind of keep your initiative if you can stick a minion after that. But Hellfire doesn't really show up in Zoo. I have seen it a couple times, but it's pretty uncommon. And in Control, where you're going to, you know, in Handlock, you're definitely going to have Hellfires. I've seen some Handlocks with Twisted Neither, so... You know, I don't think that card's making a comeback, but you see it every now and then. It syncs up with those, but I don't... When you're talking about 2/1/1s, right? It's not really that big of a deal in Handlock. Handlock's all about, you have all your 8/8s, and then you win the game if you can make them use their removal on your Twilight Drakes instead of your 8/8s, right? I mean, that's the whole basic thing of it, is that, well, if I can distract you with another card that's still kind of threatening, then I have a big threat that's going to get by your polys and your executes and your whatever. But it's all about big stuff wrecking you. They're never going to try to zerg you down with a bunch of 1/1s. So handlock, I think, is pretty limited. Maybe a little bit, but I can't see it justifying taking place in the deck. But with Zoo, it's like awesome. So, and I don't know if that's ever going to really change. We'll see. I mean, there's a lot of anti-Zoo decks, anti-Zoo cards that are coming out in the next couple weeks. So, let's see. All right, Warrior. You know, Warrior has some cards that it can do stuff with. You know, Inner Rage, could flip it up to a 3/1, trade it into something, you get 2 cards, you know, and then you have your 1/1s left. Yeah, I could see that. It's got 2 health, so it can take a tick of Whirlwind for when you're doing Armorsmith combos. Taxmaster, you know, can get benefit there. Or Whirlwind on Frothing Berserker, right? Especially if it spawns the 2/1/1s, you don't really care about them. That's just buffs for the Berserker. But as far as how good that would be, I don't really know. It has a Death Rattle, so it survives Brawl. Any card with Death Rattle, I think, is good for Brawl, because Brawl is a full board clear no matter what. No matter what the conditions of the board, no matter health, buffs, whatever, everything's dead. And so Death Rattles are really big because they guarantee that you're going to have a board presence after the Brawl's over. You know, Karn Bloodhoof and Brawl is a killer Control Warrior combo because you're going to have at least a 4/5 on the board afterwards, maybe even 2 of them. And so that's pretty beefy. That said, you know, that's a little exciting because it's a Death Rattle card. That said, you know, I feel like I'm kind of reaching on the synergy here. I mean, are you really going to care about 2/1/1s on like turn 6 or turn 7 or something like that? I guess maybe against Zoo that would be good, since sometimes you absolutely have to brawl on turn 5. But you're probably not going to have everything down. The Berserker, killing your own guys to power them up. Damaging your own guys is usually fine, but you typically never want to kill your own minions. You know, Armorsmith, it's a little extra armor. I think the best combo in the Warrior deck probably would be the Taskmaster or the Inner Rage situation, where you can use it to trade into something, because it has that extra point of health, which can matter a lot on like turn 3, turn 4. But that's really it. The rest of the stuff I don't think is super exciting for it. So overall, probably, you know, the classes that I think it works really well within are going to be Druid, especially Token Druid, because it syncs up well. Hunter, because it's a beast. Paladin, really strong there. Shaman, really strong, I think, with the aggro and the early game type ones of those. And then Zoo Warlock probably is going to be its most permanent home, so long as Zoo is something to be reckoned with. That's my top tier. You know, your middle, you're probably Warrior, Rogue. You know, there's some stuff there. None of it's really that great or that exciting, and then pretty much nothing with Mage, pretty much nothing with Priest. I don't really see it being used in any version of any of those decks. So those are my thoughts on the Creeper. You know, as we'll just have to see as more cards get released, as the metagame changes and evolves, as more cards come out, then we can look back and say, oh man, Donna, you were just a visionary and knowing all this stuff. Or what's more likely, we'll probably look back and laugh a bunch at how silly I was. So we'll have another video about the next card coming out pretty soon. Take it easy.